Today we have the case of a woman who sought an abortion supposedly to save her life, only to end up dead. This is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and today is January 27th. And welcome to the Sisyphean Journal, where we talk about women's abortion deaths and how these deaths can be prevented. And in Belinda's case, this is an example of why it absolutely infuriates me that the abortion lobby works so hard to keep women away from pro-life pregnancy centers. And it's also an example of why pro-lifers need to not be loudmouth, judgmental, shouting buttheads. They scare women away, and they scare women straight into the doors of places like Englewood Women's Hospital. So Belinda was a tiny woman, weighing only about 95 pounds, even when she was 19 weeks pregnant. Her three children, who were about 16, I believe, 13 and 11 roughly at the time of her death, had all been delivered by C-section. And Belinda's doctor had told her that if she carried this baby to term, she might die. This is why women need to be going to pregnancy resource centers. Dr. Thomas Murphy Goodwin wrote an article about how many women sought out his high-risk OBGYN practice when other doctors had told them that either their lives were in danger because of the pregnancy or that there was going to be something horribly wrong with the baby if they carried to term, only to have things be just fine, perfectly manageable. There was no reason for this woman to be seeking out an abortion. So trusting the wrong people, it's just, I don't understand why standing between a woman and somebody who's lying to make money off her is considered such a horrible thing. If Belinda had gone to a pro-life center, they could have hooked her up with somebody like Thomas Goodwin. But no, she got sent off to Englewood Women's Hospital, where she became the fifth woman to die, and finally the one that got the state to stop sitting around with their thumbs up their butts, just letting the corpses pile up. At any rate, it was January 23rd of 1987 when Belinda went to Englewood Women's Hospital for medication to prepare her for the abortion. She reported on the 24th day for the abortion that was to be performed by Dr. Stephen Pine. Belinda was the 69th of 74 women that Dr. Pine rushed through the single procedure room that day. 24 of those 74 abortions were rushed through in the last 2 hours. That's the classic 5-minute abortion that Fast Eddie Allred is credited with inventing. Only these weren't little first trimester suction abortions. Englewood specialized in second trimester abortions and were rushing through them in 5 minutes. Is it any wonder that they wound up with 5 dead women? So Pine rushed through Belinda's abortion in about 9 minutes. So that means he was giving even shorter shrift to the other women. He finished at about 4 p.m., and she was only kept in the recovery room for about 7 minutes before they took her to the hospital's other wing, for convalescence. Belinda complained that she was weak and that her legs were numb at about 5 p.m. She collapsed in the bathroom a short time later and had to be helped back to bed. No doctor looking into this, no doctor saying, why are her legs numb? Why is she collapsing? Why can't she walk unassisted? Just put her back to bed. And staff came and noticed that she was having a bloody discharge from her vagina. At about 6 p.m., Pine just left. No need for there to be a doctor at a hospital to oversee the patients, huh? No reason. At around 7 p.m., Belinda again said that she felt weak and her legs were numb. About 10 minutes later, a nurse came over and noticed that Belinda had no vital signs. She wasn't breathing. She had no heartbeat. Staff at Inglewood attempted resuscitation for 2 hours before they finally decided to call an ambulance to take Belinda to a fully equipped hospital. Now, even though Inglewood Women's Hospital really was just an abortion hospital, they were licensed as a general hospital and should have been able to take care of situations like what had happened with Belinda. But of course, obviously, they weren't. Belinda arrived at Centennial Hospital, apparently brain dead, laying atop bloody sheets. She stayed comatose until she was taken off life support on January 27th. The autopsy reported that she died due to a punctured uterus and that there was a blood clot in her lung. All stuff that a doctor could have identified and could have addressed if it wasn't. I have talked about this before. Abortion facilities get into this mindset where they're not looking at the woman, they're looking at the baby. The baby is the identified problem. Get rid of the baby. Wash your hands of the woman. She's no longer your problem. The number of women who die because it's like once the abortion's over, she's not our problem anymore. It's staggering. I wish I could get pro-choicers to care about this, but they're too busy going, oh, the pro-life center might annoy her. Let's get her off to a real clinic where they'll put her in a wheelchair and shove her out the door to die, but that's better than being annoyed by a right-to-lifer. That's the thing that drives me crazy about the abortion rights movement. Why is it that it is better for a woman to die at the hands of a pro-choicer than be annoyed by a pro-lifer? Somebody explain that to me. I have been wondering that for about 30 years now, close to 40. Let's hear what Belinda's mother wrote to the Los Angeles District Attorney. I am the mother of Belinda Byrd, victim of abortionists at Inglewood. I am also the grandmother of her 3 young children who are left behind and motherless. I cry every day when I think how horrible her death was. She was slashed by them and then she bled to death, and nobody cares. I know that other young Black women are dead now after abortion at that address. Where is the abortionist now? Has he been stopped? Has anything happened to him because of what he did to my Belinda? Has he served jail time for any of these deaths? People tell me that nothing has happened, that nothing ever happens when white abortionists leave young Black women dead. I'm hurting real bad and want some justice for Belinda and all the other women who go like sheep to slaughter. She's still waiting. Black Lives Matter as long as they're not Belinda Byrd's death, as long as they're not Edrika Good, as long as they're not Cree Irwin Shepherd, as long as they're not Antonisha Ross. Only, I'm not even going to go into the whole BLM other than the fact that it would be really nice if they cared about the women that are getting substandard care at these abortion clinics and end up dead. And that's just, well, you know, things happen sometimes. All surgery has risks. People get bent out of shape over Jacob Blake. Well, you know, resisting arrest has risks. Ugh. A defense attorney for Inglewood claimed that Belinda hadn't bled to death, but had instead died to a rare condition that caused a blood clot to form in her lungs several hours after surgery. They still should have diagnosed it, shouldn't they? Maybe they should have taken a look and paid attention when she was weak and collapsing and reporting that her legs were numb. Had 3 doctors been standing there at the time, chances of that woman surviving were practically nil. This case doesn't belong in a courtroom. It belongs in a textbook. The dog ate my homework. And Inglewood officials poo-pooed the whole idea that Pine was rushing through abortions too quickly. They said it's not unusual for doctors at Inglewood to do 100 abortions a day. That's kind of like I've been driving drunk for the past 10 years and haven't had a wreck yet, so what's the problem? They asserted that this rapid-fire assembly line approach was safe, even though they specialized in the more difficult and time-consuming second trimester abortions. Now, Pine settled out of court with Belinda's family, $250,000. Prior to, he shouldn't have admitted that he was guilty. A jury decided that although Pine and everybody at Inglewood had been negligent, they could not prove that it was actually the negligence that has caused Belinda's death. That caused a mistrial. So we had a woman who died there in 73, one in 75, one in 78, and one in 1983. It took Belinda's death in 1987 to get officials to go, well, no, maybe we should look at that place. Maybe there's something wrong there. Oh, what do you think? So they inspected the place, and among other things, they caught an abortionist writing post-operative exam notes without even examining the patients. That is the kind of thing that gets dead patients charted as pink, responsive, and alert. And again, does the abortion rights lobby care? No! They're too busy worrying about whether pro-life centers are telling women that abortion can increase their breast cancer risk, which is disputed but not false. It's unproven but not false. There's a buttload of evidence. But, oh, that might scare them. That might scare them. Send them over there. If they die, that's okay. At least they didn't get scared by pro-lifers. One nurse told investigators that Pine rarely examined his patients after their abortions and signed discharge papers before the patients had even left the recovery room, which at least he's waiting until they're in the recovery room. There have been clinics that are caught writing the post-op reports before the abortion even starts. Again, cue crickets. Do pro-choicers care about this? Hell no. Some woman might walk into a pregnancy center and get free baby clothes, and we have to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah, I know I'm snorting. This aide later quit without giving notice, saying it was just a slaughterhouse and I couldn't take it anymore. A health official told the Los Angeles Times that Inglewood had a long history of battlefield conditions and a caseload of about 1,000 abortions a month in their single operating room. Inglewood processed 11,330 abortion patients in 1986 alone. Patients were rushed through surgery with the table and floors stained with the blood of previous patients. Doctors didn't wash their hands or their equipment between patients. Patients were encouraged to leave the facility before they felt comfortable doing so, and patients were discharged without being assessed by physicians. Gosh, we need to worry about whether pro-life pregnancy centers are telling women things that Planned Parenthood doesn't like the women to hear. Don't look at places like Inglewood. Don't look at Kermit Gosnell. Don't. But she might die. Well, that's better than being annoyed by a pro-lifer. Anything's better than being annoyed by a pro-lifer. So the inspection led to a 29-page report citing 33 violations. Inglewood was threatened with suspension of Medicare and Medi-Cal funding for problems, including dumping an injured abortion patient, just shipping her off to the hospital without even letting them know that she was coming. So they were threatened with loss, but they didn't have their ability to bill the taxpayers for this kind of crap, just yanked like it should have been. So the state at least did revoke Inglewood's license, but less than 2 weeks later, they just reopened as West Coast Women's Medical Group. So, and it was later bought out by Fast Eddie Allred and added to his Family Planning Associates Medical Group cluster of abortion facilities. So, I don't know if any women died after that. Like, share, subscribe, comment, spread the word, because I would love to go through. What I need to be able to do is look at death certificates for women of childbearing age and cross-index them across the addresses of abortion facilities, because I get the feeling there are a lot that we don't know about.